You're listening to the Nonduality podcast. This is Nic Higham from nisargayoga.com, and here with me is Paul Dobson. This is part 2 of our tribute to Peter Brown, who passed away at the beginning of September 2022, but is very much still with us. Enjoy.
Realization simply means to realize reality, to realize actuality, to realize what you are, to realize what this is. This is the fabled enlightenment, this is realization, this is all of these fabulous superlative terms that different spiritual traditions throw around. It's simply about discovering what's actually going on here, what's actually here. And it already is actually here, it already is actually going on. And it's going on in and as your experience, so it's completely accessible, it's completely available. You can just check it out. And the only thing whatsoever that can get in the way of you doing that is you're thinking you already know what it is. So you don't look. We typically have all sorts of interpretations about what's going on here. Oh, this is a world, and I'm a human being, and I'm in a body, and I have my life, and I have my history. The whole curriculum vitae that is pretty much common sense reality for most people. But there's actually no evidence to support any of that. And if you look at what is actually here, outside of any preconceptions, outside of any expectations of what it should conform to, you will be able to discover very directly and very readily what is actually here and how it actually works, so to speak.
So what exactly exists? Does the world exist? No. Do people exist? No. Does your past exist? No. Does your future exist? No. Does your personality exist? No. So what does exist? Well, we don't have a lot of words for what exists, but one word we have, which is not too bad, is your experience. All of these other things, the world, people, yourself, your history, your future, your life, your success, your failure, all of these supposed things are abstractions that your intelligence, your imagination effortlessly can pull out of your experience based on your experience and assume that they refer to things that objectively exist, assume they refer to real entities, real qualities, real things. But you cannot find these things anywhere other than your experience. The only thing that's real whatsoever is your experience. And yet when you try and look, okay, here's this experience, what exactly is it? You can't put your finger on it, you can't find it, you can't pin it down, you can't say what it is. Your experience is always completely full, it's always 100% present. So this discovery is a joyful discovery, it's a liberating discovery, it's a discovery that it's a big load off when you discover what this actual situation that is actually true, that actually exists, is like. And it's possible to discover this very clearly because it is true, because it does exist, and it nakedly exists. We can see it, see all of its details. It's right here always for us to investigate. We can look and see and discover what it is, discover what is true about it and what is not true about it, as best we are able. And so we can discover what we are, we can discover what this is.
And it turns out to be rather good news, because what is actually here is transcendental, what people usually mean by the phrase God or the divine. It is beyond space, it's beyond time, it's beyond causality. And that's kind of cool. It has a whole different feeling to see that and to feel that that is your life than the feeling of being stuck in your difficult little life with all of its challenges and all of its hopeless conundrums and all of its broken dreams and aspirations that can never be fulfilled and all these kinds of things, which are all, turns out, just imaginary anyway.
You are the whole show, and anything that you're experiencing is in no way separate from you. It is you, actually. Peter would say your true body is your experience. It's not this little flesh body that we take ourselves to be. It's your experience. Your true body is your experience. All of your experience. Because where can you draw the line between you and what you're experiencing? Of course, that's your body. You are aware of all of it. And what you'd previously taken to be your body is this, this flesh thing, biological vehicle that you are aware of. So you take that to be your body. It's so limited. Like, to take that one fragment of experience to be what you are. The issue is that we start with the actual biological body, the human body, and then we take ourselves to be something to do with the brain, and we're in the brain and we're perceiving from in here. But what if that's just bullshit? What do you actually know for a fact? Imagine that this is the biggest conspiracy you can imagine. Beyond flat earth conspiracies, like, this is the biggest conspiracy, that all there actually is your experience. There is no world, there is no person, there is no anything. It's just your experience. What if that's the case? Then you're not listening to something as some separate thing. You're not seeing something as some separate thing. You are what you see, you are what you hear. And you are the interpretations of what you hear and see that then creates this separate thing that's listening. And that's all part of the flow. And it's just unbelievable. Like, the flow includes this apparently separate entity that's listening and seeing and touching the flow. That's part of the flow too. It's all this experiencing. That's your true body. And so you are reality exploring itself through that particular perspective in order to fully know itself. It's just an exploration.
Yeah, I love that. Your true body is your experiencing, and your experiences are like your cells. So you know you're aware, you know you're conscious, you know you exist, before you even know what you are and can say what you are, even consider, who is it that I am that is aware? Who is this one that is aware? How is it that I'm aware? You know you're aware. You know you're experiencing. So that's irrefutable. That's a fact. That's like the default mode. And within your experiencing, there are always experiences. And those experiences are then called tables and chairs and clocks and people and all of that. But really, they are experiences. The experiences embraced within your capacity, your infinite capacity of experiencing, are your cells. And because they are cells, they're not separate from you. They are held within you. They are absolutely permeated with your lifeblood, which is reality. And all these experiences are just mirrorings of that one experiencing. And you are the experiencing, and the experiences are you. And they're just slightly different variations because they're different perspectives and different orientations and just a different light reflection on each of those depictions within that hall of mirrors. At any given time, you can take a closer look at any of those reflections and see the original shapeless shape of you. And whatever you take yourself to be, clearly you are prior to it, or the foundation for it, or the background for it, because you are experiencing it. So the body and the mind are experiences. These thoughts are experiences. These emotions are experiences. You experiencing are non-conceptual. You're not a concept. You can't truly conceptualize what you are as experiencing, and you can't truly conceptualize the experiences, your cells within you. Not really. And this is the point. This is what Peter points to again and again. When you get really close, when you kind of investigate your cells or your body, you find there is nothing there to grab hold of. Because you're not a separate entity, because you're not a conceptual person with a past, with a history, with a character, with conditioning, because you're not that, because you are experiencing itself. You don't simply exist, you are existence. You're not simply present, you are presence itself. You're not simply conscious, you are consciousness itself. And you're not a product of thought or imagination. Now, you can certainly imagine and what you're imagining are your experiences.
The only reality we can find is very, very different than we're used to thinking of it as being. And on the contrary, what we're used to thinking of as being very real, i.e. the world, people, our lives, our situations, all these other things, when you look for them, they turn out to be wholly unreal. And wholly, they're imputations, they're fantasies, they're abstractions that exist nowhere other than in your imagination, being based on this very strange, dreamlike fact of your experience. When you look at any of the detail that presents itself, you can't pin it down. You can't say exactly what it is. You can't get a handle on it. You can't get it to hold still. You can't get it to resolve into something coherent or solid or even very clear. So there's this amazing quality of presence and specificity, and yet at the same time, everything is completely dreamlike and unfindable. You can't say what it is in the moment, and yet it's already something else in the moment, because whatever condition obtains is already gone. This is our experience. These are very, very strange qualities. We think of things as being somehow objectively existing and stable and solid and persistent. The world is there. It doesn't go anywhere. It's solid. It's not changing that much or that fast. But in actuality, you can't find a world. All you can find is this very, very strange experience, which in actuality is constantly changing. In fact, we're highly trained and highly skilled at denying and ignoring that change. Every time you move your head or shift your eyes, the entire world shifts, jumps. And we are expert at ignoring that fact and assuming that, no, the world is stable and just something else shifted. But this stable world can be found nowhere other than in our experience, which in point of fact is jumping all over the place and is completely inconsistent. Inconsistent in the sense of having no constancy, no consistency from moment to moment in terms of the qualities that we actually find. And in many other ways, our experience is very, very strange. It's, this fact that it's extremely obvious, extremely self-evident, extremely detailed and present. If we have the wherewithal to notice this fact, to really see it as it is, our entire relationship to our life becomes transformed, becomes very different, because we discover that what's going on here is very different than what we're used to thinking is going on here. And the implications of how it works, how to relate to it, what is involved, and all of these kinds of things, again, turn out to be very different than we're used to thinking they are. And this discovery is very liberating, it's very freeing. We discover we are it. We discover we can't fail at it. We also can't succeed at it.
We're in a genuine mode of duality, which is things have to be one way or another. They can't be both ways. It can't be both a particle and a wave. That doesn't make any sense. Yet, in the double slit investigation, they find that is the case. So that's kind of how reality is. It's both and, which we can't get our heads around. So it's dynamic, yet it's always itself. It's dependable, yet it's always changing and always different. And it doesn't take away from the fact that one fact doesn't take away from another fact. There's constant arguments within spiritual communities going, well, it's like this or it's like that. This school of thought has it right, or this school of Buddhism has it right, this school of Hinduism has it right. And it's not that any of them are wrong or right. It's that it's literally is infinite. And it's not static, so it can be it can express absolutely any and all ways, which from certain perspectives may appear to look static, but it's never actually static. There's various schools of thought, isn't there? And they all seem to be arguing with each other quite a lot of the time, sometimes having wars, sometimes arguing on Reddit, which is the microcosm of a war, in my opinion. And they're all simultaneously incorrect and correct. So they don't need to argue. These are all analysing the same thing and coming up with a slightly different result. And what's being missed is that this is inconclusive. This is infinite, so you don't need to conclude it in any way. It doesn't come down to one school of thought. It doesn't. It can't. It just can't, because infinity is like that. It can't be described. It can't come down to one school of thought. It can't come down to one tradition. It just can't be like that. You're not what you think you are. You are reality exploring itself as that particular vantage, from that particular way of being with itself, in that particular ignorance, you could say. That's how it's exploring itself, and it's all useful to reality. It's all interesting. It's all exciting and curious. But the person forgets that, orienting to your experience as a person. It's frustrating as hell. And to the person, it's not interesting. It's not curious. It's boring. It's dull. It's suffering. It's frustrating. And it feels infinite impatience towards this situation that it seems to be stuck in, especially when you're just starting to come out of that situation. But to reality, it's all good. Another exploration point. That nothing's actually obscuring anything. That it's just that these things are, hypnotic. It literally is like being hypnotized to believe that you're separate, and to believe that these things are different from you, and that they're separate, and you're a separate individual entity, separate from the others, and that it's not all just this miraculous, indescribable flow of whatever it is we're calling experience. And that's the only difficulty we face. And so we say it's all so simple, and it is. It's simultaneously frustrating and difficult if you're coming to look at reality via your interpretations, or very habitually. It's like it's like basically like anything, like breaking the habit. You're addicted to drinking or smoking. You break the habit eventually, like one day at a time, you break the habit. This isn't that different, really. Reality is breaking its addiction to you as reality, or breaking your addiction to your interpreting reality, interpreting yourself as your thoughts, as your ideas about yourself, as your stories about yourself, as your concepts about yourself. Your addiction to those things is just the habit that you need to become less attached to, become less functioning through. It's just like breaking any habit.
The functioning of psyche is miraculous. The emergence of apparent personality is miraculous. The engagement with the experiential fields and all their differentiation, the apparent precision and concurrent indeterminacy of sensory information, let's say, is literally miraculous. It's not susceptible. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's not susceptible to analysis or logical process or cause and effect. Which is a pretty good approximation of miraculousness, I guess. And yet our intuition that this is self is actually true. It is self. But self is not anything. Self is just means actuality, and actuality is a meaningless term because actuality simply means miracle. So, it's not so much that there's no self, is that self is intrinsically miraculous and transcendental, as is every and anything, to the extent there is an every and anything. And simply noticing that fact nakedly reveals what this is. And that fact is revealed continually because there's no other fact to be revealed. And anything that appears is that fact. Our delusion, our confusion, our misinterpretation is itself nothing whatsoever other than this astounding miracle functioning inconceivably, appearing out of nothing. And here it is. And it doesn't make any sense, so there's no basis for distinguishing between confusion and clarity, because it's undefinable what anything is in the final analysis. So confusion is actually not clearly definable. Clarity is not clearly definable. They're all equally, let's say, miraculous, equally inconceivable. Just this, and you can't take it as anything whatsoever accurately, and yet it continually takes itself as this, that, and the other, effortlessly, and that fact is itself miraculous. that it does so, that it can do so, and that it does so unceasingly, that it continually is getting partial takes on itself as this, that, and the other erroneously.
Bit by bit, the more you come back to direct experience or notice that you're already in direct experience, the more you notice this, the more you stay directly with it, and the more you look and engage with what's perceived, what's seen, what's thought, what's felt as that, as direct experience, not as the ideas about it. The more you do that, the more you're kind of whittling away at those habitual patterns. It operates as, in the same way a massive brain operates, like a dopamine kind of addiction to thoughts and habits, and are no longer in the habit of going via this strange wiggly path of concepts and thoughts to get to what's perceived, and you go straight there, the more that is strengthened and seen more clearly and more efficiently every single passing moment until it's automatic. Or the wording is a little bit off with this. It's already noticed. It's already there. It just requires a little bit of sensitivity and noticing. What this is about is being with it more and more sensitively, more and more profoundly. This isn't a philosophy. Non-duality is just a name given to reality exploration. First-hand, direct experience of what's just happening in any given moment, in any way, whatever quality it shows up at, and just really just revealing what they are as they arise, just by that exploration, just feeling into them. They reveal themselves. Then you're more and more on its own terms, as opposed to the terms of this seeming self that seems to think it's separate from the flow of everything, that feels it's separate from the radiance, that feels it's separate from the absolute somehow. You're on the terms of, instead of that, you're on the terms of reality with itself, because that's what you are. Even when you seem to be this little self that thinks it's separate, you're still reality. You're just reality hypnotizing itself, seducing itself into forgetting. It's not it's not necessarily a bad or wrong thing, but that's just what is happening. But when you're not able to take advantage of the situation from there, you're not able to enjoy reality in its fullness from there, because you're always misinterpreting it. You're not actually ever cutting yourself off, but in a sense you are cutting yourself off from the richness. Say there's a sunset, and the sunset is always there. Let's say it's a perpetual sunset, a beautiful sunset. But if you're looking at your phone, you're not going to notice the sunset. So it's kind of like that. This is about looking at the beautiful sunset and noticing it and enjoying it. Just noticing that it's there. Just noticing what is the case. And the more sensitively you are with it, the more you sort of begin to enjoy it. An analogy he would use a lot, and we use a lot, is dreams. So go with what you know. You don't know how you've got here. Like, really, if you're really honest with yourself, it's just be ultra skeptical. Like, you don't know how this is just appearing, and you don't know. You've got people's stories about you they're telling you were born and all of this kind of stuff. But if you're really honest with your direct experience, you don't know how this has occurred. Because you could be having a dream at night where they've told you you've been born and all of this stuff, and you're a different character in the dream, and you take yourself to be that person, and then you've got your mother in the dream, which is telling you, oh yeah, I gave birth to you. It's just like some random dream character. And if you take all of that as true, then you will believe it, and you'll create a world of cause and effect, time and space, objects, people, and all of it makes sense. I'm listening to everything as a separate aspect of it, and blah blah blah. I'm an entity that's been born into this world. But actually, in the dream, there's just dreaming, which is you. You are the dreaming. Your body is the dreaming. You are the dreaming. You can maybe play the part of being a character that's been born into it, which is part of the show. And there's nothing to suggest that this is different. if we go with the evidence of our direct experience, if we just stick closely, directly with our experience, there's nothing to suggest that that's not actually the case here in our apparent waking state. Assume that maybe everyone doesn't know, that even the scientists don't know, that they're investigating stuff, but maybe they don't know. They know patterns, they know phenomena, they know like how things work. They're very intelligent. I'm not taking away from the intelligence of scientists. They do things they're a lot smarter than me. But maybe that's not the end of what this is. Maybe it's not an objective world and universe, and you're not an objective being. Maybe it's actually within something similar to what a dream is. Maybe it's all just experience. And within that, you can measure experience. You can create, you can do experiments within experience of experience. You can put experience under a microscope. You can create aeroplanes using formulas of mathematics within experience. Doesn't take away from that, but it's still all made of, what is its substance? It's all made of experience. If you take it down to its absolute core of it, its essence, you can never ever separate any of it from experience. Everything is experiential. Flying in an airplane is experiential. Viewing the sky is experiential. It's not separate things.
If you find yourself getting caught up in conundrums of trying to notice, a way to expose the paradoxical nature and the absurdity of all that is try to exist. And, okay, let me try to exist. You'll see right away the complete idiocy of that notion, because the existence is already a done deal, and you can't not exist. So trying to exist is a logical construction which is completely and entirely meaningless.
The noticing that you're talking about, is it beyond this plotting mind that thinks it takes place in time and seems to kind of go on, and then there's no noticing?
It's beyond it, but it doesn't exclude it. It's also within it. Mm. It's just the condition within which everything happens, and the condition that everything actually consists of. It's experience. Noticing just means experience, and of course, all of the thinking mind and all that occurs within experience. So experience is within the thinking mind, but experience is more than the thinking mind. Experience is not contained within, or trapped within, or stuck within the thinking mind, and it completely transcends it, without needing to exclude it or be an alternative to it.
But it seems like there are moments of clarity that cut through the mind thinking that it's noticing.
Sure. But
it's clear that that's already present.
Sure.
That's always present. Yeah. But then there's this plotting mind that...
Yeah, all that, yeah.
It's thinking it's...
Yeah, there can seem to be these moments of clarity, and they can seem to be caught up in mind. But when there are those moments of clarity, as you say, you notice that you're actually seeing a clarity that's actually always there, even when you're not noticing and plotting in your mind. So it's all very paradoxical. Mm-hmm. And the important thing is to notice that rather than try and sort it out. Just because any contact with that, even if it's seemingly momentary, is powerful and transformative. And then you may seem to be, tossed through hoops in the machinations of your own neuroses or whatever. But ultimately that will come to matter less and less as you come to notice this presence more and more, which spontaneously happens. If you want to do noticing, it's very, very, very easy. Just feel experience. Feel experience. Don't feel the room. Don't feel the people. Don't feel your body. Don't feel your thoughts. Just feel the experience. What's experience itself made of? What's experience feel? Experience feels like something. What is it? What does it feel like? Well, just feel it. Don't answer the question. Don't come up with an answer. Just feel experience. Like the way you would feel To see if a bathtub is the right temperature, you just put your hand in it. You don't think about it, you just put your hand in it and you know. So likewise, just feel experience like you're putting your hand in water and feel what it is. Noticing. Just like that. Experience is something. Experience is a substance. It's a very subtle, very weird substance, but it's a substance, it's something. And you can and do feel it. So just feel experience. Can't make sense of it. Right away you're outside of your mind, you're outside of logic, because you feel experience. What does that mean? How do you make sense of that? Well, you can't, and so don't bother. But you just do that, just feel it. What is the texture of experience? Okay. And then the mind will kick in and you get carried away. Okay, fine, no problem. Then just sometime again you do it again, like, okay, feel it. What's experience feel like? What's experience itself? What is it that is present? What substance, what thing is present? That's experience. It's something. It's an actuality. And just feel that. Don't figure out how to feel it. Just feel it. Just like bang, just do it. And right there, notice it.
The way to recognize this, or a way to recognize this, is to explore your present experience just by being very intimate and sensitive, as we've been saying, to be very directly or nakedly with the immediacy of this present phenomena, this present experience, no matter what it is. Don't try to change it. Don't try to get rid of it. Just become acquainted with what this actually is, any facet of your present experience. Feel it non-intellectually, sensation level experiencing, texturally explore it. Explore it qualitatively by feeling what it actually feels like. When you look at sights, you're actually seeing the texture of this experiencing. When you hear sound, you're hearing the texture of experiencing. When you smell a smell, you're smelling the texture of experiencing. When you taste a flavor, you're tasting the texture of experiencing. And when you think a thought, you're thinking the texture of experiencing. Don't go on to what you know about it. Go into what you feel about it. And I don't mean emotionally, I mean energetically. Don't make any judgments, and if judgments are made, notice those, notice the spontaneity of those, and bring your attention to what feels to be true about this experience. So feel its texture in terms of its substance, in terms of its inherent qualities, rather than the secondary labels.
I'd like to introduce a technical term at this point. Anytime you take anything to be something, in other words, you close the door on it, you take it as, typically unconsciously, we do this very automatically. You take something to be something and, that's what it is. In other words, you're not letting yourself notice directly and in real time the open-endedness, the essential open-endedness of it. The technical term for that phenomena is bullshit. This is what bullshit means. So we get lost in bullshit when we take anything to be something, because you can't find what anything is, because it's all absolutely bottomless, it's all absolutely infinitely open-ended. There's no limit to the richness of experience that is presented in any aspect of experience. This applies, of course, on every level: sensory, thought, subtle vibes, whatever. And it's irrespective of scale. A tiny flash of light is exactly as infinite and contains exactly as much unending, open-ended information as the continent of Africa does.
What is primary? What is primary. The actual suchness, the actual isness of this experience is primary. And you can't say what it is. You can't think what it is. Just do this very, very immediately and experientially, rather than intellectually or analytically. You get to feel this moment as a kind of field of energies and sensations, and go into the sights and the smells and the tastes and the sounds and the very touch Go into the thoughts, but know those thoughts not as like a incessant dictator or script narrator, but feel the texture of the thoughts as well. Yeah, it's easy to feel the texture of the felt sense mode of experiencing, and maybe less easy or accessible to feel thoughts this way. But it is possible, because thoughts are only imagination or conception, which is only experiencing. So put aside what you think this is. Entertain the fact that you really don't know what any of this is. That opens up so much clarity in space and flow, a new capacity seemingly to really become acquainted with existence, with beingness.
The first of the properties of reality is perfect clarity. There's always perfect clarity. Everything appears in perfect clarity. As you see the objects in the space in front of you, notice how it's absolutely clear that what is you're seeing. It's appearing in perfect clarity. And like absolutely, as if you were seeing it through an absolutely polished glass or a completely unpolluted atmosphere. Perfect clarity. I squint my eyes, so I'm barely seeing through my almost closed eyelids. Everything appears very blurry and grey. And yet that blurriness and greyness appears with perfect clarity. There's absolutely nothing in between my experience and this blurriness that I'm experiencing with perfect clarity. I feel the sensations of my body, my arms on my thighs. I feel my butt on the chair, my feet touching the ground. And all these experiences show up in a space of absolutely perfect clarity. Unstained. Unstainable. I feel a difficult emotion. I think of a situation that might have happened. Maybe someone was unkind to me, or I did something thoughtless that bothers me. And I feel angry. That shouldn't have happened that way. And anger appears in a space of perfect clarity. Anger doesn't tarnish the perfection of the clarity even one tiny bit. And yet the anger appears in all its splendor without any modification, any diminishing by this totally pure medium of clarity. I try and stop the clarity. I try and turn it off. I try to not be aware. I can't do it. This perfectly clear awareness is an ever-present space that everything happens in. I can't change it. I can't improve it. I can't make it worse. I can't pollute it. It's always present in this present moment. The present moment consists of nothing but it. It is timeless. It doesn't come, it doesn't go. It's always been the same, always will be the same. The entire sphere of my perceptions appears in this perfect clarity. Right in this instant, my sight appears, my sensation of touch appears, my smell appears, I'm hearing sounds, thoughts are appearing, other subtle energies in my awareness are appearing. And they all appear in the space of this perfect clarity. And they don't affect it one tiny bit. They come and they go, and the perfect clarity is always there. We don't need to create it. We can't improve it. We can't diminish it. There's no on switch. There's no off switch. It is reality. It is one of the aspects of reality. It's what we are. It's what this is this perfect clarity. Unstoppable. Unstainable. And as the rest of our lives continue, this clarity will be here. It will all be happening in now, unstoppably. Notice that whether you were sitting quietly, concentrating, or laughing, joking, talking, going to the bathroom, eating food, driving home, having arguments. Always this perfect clarity will be there, unstoppably. It's like the perfectly polished window through which everything is seen. That's the first property of reality.
You don't arrive at any answer. You don't arrive at a conclusion, not least on the conceptual level. There's no final confession or final analysis that you can add to your sense of self. There is just this primal intelligence, this primal meaningfulness which gives birth to meaning and happily does so. This meaning is not a mistake. We have these dictionaries full of definitions, and I don't know how many words there are, how many concepts there are in the dictionary, but we could easily assume that there's a world of that many things. But right now, what do you actually find? You find one experience. Even if that experience seems to be chunked up into different pieces, it's one. It's really one, because there is no separation. Because those definitions are conceptual, those meanings are ultimately meaningless, but they're made of this primal meaningfulness, which can't be comprehended, can't be spoken of, can only be experienced, and you always are. So it's this sort of primal purity that is behind experience, and that permeates experience and saturates experience. And it's this intelligence that is built into everything, that everything is made of, and it's you. This miraculous substance that can present itself as anything. And look, feel, smell, taste, it's doing it now. It's doing it now. It's perfect. It's perfection itself, presenting this way, this way, this way. And it doesn't increase, doesn't decrease. It can't be started. It can't be stopped. And so discovering and noticing, tuning into this intelligence of life is the essence of what this is all about. It's the essence of spirituality. And it's the essence of life, because actually it's always going on. Whether you know it or not, you're always engaging with yourself. You're always knowing yourself. And it can present as these sights, these sounds, these smells, these tastes, these thoughts. Not about getting rid of any of that. Not about eradicating any of that. Only discerning what all of those things actually are. Hearing is experiencing. Smelling is experiencing. Now it seems like you are a subject hearing a voice that belongs to another subject, but in your actual noticing of what's going on there, you can only find hearing, which is actually experiencing. There's just this one seamless experiencing. So it is all things, all actions, all events. And you can't find the final version of anything, because even though this primal intelligence that you are is constant and seemingly eternal and infinite, changeless, beyond any quality, nirguna, the way it presents itself is ever changeful and is full of qualities. So it keeps shifting, it keeps shifting, it keeps shifting. There's this dance of energy morphing. And if you're really attentive and sensitive, you can see it everywhere. Just this dance of energy. It's almost like white noise. You can hear it as well in every sound. You can feel it. You can definitely feel it. That sort of buzz of being. And so you can't find a final version of that dance. A dance without a beginning, without an end. And it's like free-form dance. It has no precedent. It has no inherent patterning or template. It just keeps morphing. And even though this moment may seem mundane, it may seem boring, it may seem like the last moment, or whatever you're experiencing right now, like you're driving in the car, it's like the same car you drove yesterday. But actually, is it? Is that true? Because this moment is actually unique and fresh. It's like crisp with vitality, and it's matchless. The only context it has is itself, and itself is experiencing. whatever this is, this sentience, this consciousness. There is no point where it presents itself and then holds, like freezes. Now it's a car. Now it's a tree. Now it's a person. That's not the way life works.
Your experience at the present moment has no context. It may seem to have a context. It may seem to have familiarity based on your experience of a moment ago. And that experience may have seemed to have context of familiarity based upon the experience of the previous moment, and so on and so forth. Any familiarity that this present moment seems to have, any sense of normalcy or dullness or non-excitingness or familiarity is a good way to put it, is really based on absolutely nothing. This moment, imagine that you have never had experience and all of a sudden, bang, out of absolute void, this all of a sudden just flashes into your experience. You don't know what anything is, you don't know what color is, you don't know what light is, you don't know what sound is, but bang, it's just here, and you have no idea at all what it actually is. And that is, in truth, your actual situation. That's actually what's happening here. I think habitually we tend to mask our noticing of that fact with this sense of familiarity, this sense of context, this sense of, this is normal because it's kind of like what has been happening before that I can recall, which was kind of normal, and so on and so forth. But it's sort of bootstrapped up out of nothing. It's bootstrapped up out of contextlessness. It's bootstrapped up out of before you were born, and what was your experience like then? In that context, how much familiarity, how much normalcy can this have? What's happening now is inconceivable. It's absolutely inconceivable. It's absolutely unique. It has no precedent. It has no context other than itself. It's completely surprising, completely unanticipatable, and our only challenge from a spiritual point of view is to notice that fact, is to notice that that is our actual situation, this situation of absolute contextlessness. And the only thing that supplies context is imagination, our fantasies of continuity, our fantasies of history, all of which are essentially generated in real time in our imagination. And this fantasy of continuity, this fantasy of familiarity, is what we use to feel trapped. It's what we use to feel stuck. It's what we use to feel small. It's what we use to feel boring and dull. And all of these qualities, all of these apparent context is generated solely in fantasy, solely in imagination. Because in actual fact, how could there be dullness? How could there be normalcy? The circumstances of this moment have never happened before in any sense whatsoever. This moment is inventing itself in real time. What could possibly be more exciting than that, be more surprising than that, be more interesting than that, be more groundless than that? And we can notice this. We can discover that this is the case. We can discover that our experience is unprecedented. And the precedent we supply, this precedent of normalcy and familiarity, is imaginary. It has no existence.
Even with the overlay of language, person, car, tree, those words don't actually do anything in reality. They just seem to capture that particular expression in that moment. It's like you paint a beautiful picture and you give it a name. This picture is called the garden path. It's just an arbitrary description you gave the painting, but the painting itself is just full of colour and texture. You turn it upside down, it could be something else. You get a microscope and you zoom in and you can see the fabric of the canvas and it's something else, and it has no final version of itself, really. You can see it in different lights and different contexts, put a different frame around it, give it different words and labels. And that's how experience works. You can frame it in any way. The appearance of this moment is its disappearance. It comes and it goes. Yet, what's really important to say is that the substance of it is stable. It's the only stable substance there is, and it's not really a material substance. But the idea of a stable object or a stable thing is just supposition, just an idea, just a notion that doesn't hold any water in reality. Our experience is constantly fluctuating, but what it is constant. It's the constancy itself, and you can always come back to it and you never leave it. So it's constantly dynamic, never really settles down, never stabilizes, yet what it is all there is. All experiences are absolutely saturated, absolutely imbued with this creativity of this primal intelligence, with this perfect, brilliant, radiant presence. When we notice this intelligence, and you can't not, when you notice it knowingly, we notice that life is just actually profoundly meaningful, profoundly integral to the very fabric of reality because it never departs from it. The good news is that you have immediate access to this intelligence, to this presence, because it's the very experience you're having right now. And so everything whatsoever that you experience is that experience, is that presence, is that beingness, is that light of radiance.
Yeah. You are reality. It's not that you're shifting identity to reality. It's like when you drop identity, you are reality, and that's the solid fact. And everything's in its actual context then. Its actual context, not this weird dreamlike hypnotic context where we've put ourselves as the center, being the person, where we put the person as front and center of who we are. It's, I am in my actual context as reality. I am as reality. And then the person is within that, and the person is experienced, is not as a separate thing, as just part of this infinite flow. And the thing about it is, there's sometimes this sort of fear around that you might lose the personality. It's like, well, I like this person, like I like being this person. I like communicating with other people. You don't lose any of that. Actually, in a way, it gets deeper, it gets richer, it gets more profound, because you're not communicating from the level of the fearful person that needs to get something from someone or is afraid of someone. You are communicating from the level of, I recognize you. I recognize you, and I'm enjoying our communication as reality to itself. It's as this expression that we can even appear like as different aspects of ourselves and enjoy each other's company in this way. That's amazing. So it's a totally different perspective, isn't it? Just like, wow, it's so beyond your wildest imaginations what you actually are, that you can't even begin to think about it. It's just too much. It's like, what the implications of it are just, you mean I'm this infinite thingless thing that is infinitely powerful, infinitely dynamic and rich and glowing with just pure radiance. I'm infinite in all possible directions, in all possible ways. And I never started, and I won't come to an end. And I just am as this, and that's how things are. And as that, I've mistaken myself to be a person. And I've been playing that role for a while. It's like, well, which role am I going to continue going back to? It's like a non-choice, isn't it? You're going to go to the rich golden fullness over the personal mode. Everything is deeply intimate. It's just beyond intimate. When you come to see it like this, it's just everything's so intimate. You don't lose anything. You don't lose family and friends or anything like that, you realize that you're more intimate with them than you could ever possibly imagine, that you can never possibly lose them. Like, because they are what you are, but not in some kind of solipsistic, nihilistic way. It's beyond that. It's like, you know, to put some romantic words on it, it's kind of like love expressing itself. It's love for this, exploring love. What could be more amazing than that, really? And that's what this is, you know. Love is a word, you know, but it kind of points at something. It points at something deeper, something true, something that we feel. We all know, like, deeply, like, love, like there's something there with love, and it's not just a word, it's something there. And what is it? What if you really explore into love? What is it? What is it to lose yourself in love or in beauty? And that's what this actually is. That's what that is the losing of the idea of being separate from it. And the idea dissolves for that moment. You lose your, I mean, literally that phrase, you hear people say, I lost myself in love. You lost yourself, and there was only love left. There was just love. And so that, yeah, that's what this is. It doesn't always feel like that, for sure, but that doesn't take away from the fact, you know, that is what this is. It can feel what anyway. It can feel, in its infinite love for itself, it's free to feel however it feels, free to express however it expresses, and that's kind of part of the adventure of itself, part of a ride, because it does, you know, it doesn't stay stuck. It doesn't stay stuck in any one thing. It's love, you could say, viewing itself from all perspectives so it can really more fully appreciate itself.
Yeah. There's a bit of a myth or an assumption that upon waking up, that those familiar patterns of perception and conditioning kind of just fall away instantly. And of course, I'm not ruling that out, but often there's a softening or a gradual dissolution of those patterns. They also don't have to go away because we recognize them for what they are. We discern what they're made of. And that, paradoxically, just to contradict what I just said, does change the felt sense of those conditions, those patterns. They are known to be kind of benign and to be held unconditionally within your capacity of experiencing. Those patterns, those conditionings are ultimately experiences made of you experiencing. That's what liberation means. You are free of the circumstances and those patterns, whether they continue to play out or not. You were never in bondage, but you recognize that now. You recognize you're free. That no condition, no pattern, no conceptualization can hinder you, can block you. It's all this astounding explosion of energy appearing in inconceivable ways in this infinite space of consciousness. And it is only consciousness. That's all you ever find. Without effort, you are experiencing. And that's a given. Now, what is it that you are experiencing? The closer and more immediately you meet your experience, the less of the concepts you find and the more of the experiencing you find. So all these apparent things, all these events that are transpiring right now, all of these qualities that are kind of flowing in your consciousness, all of this stuff is made up of the texture of experiencing itself. All of these things are not made up of the concepts. They're made up of experiencing. And it's not physical. It's energetic in nature. Whatever energy means. What is energy? Can't even say what energy is. But you can feel the energetic essence or substance of what's here beyond the superficial layer of thinking. This is a quote by Adja Thomas. He says, "If you wish to fully appreciate the beauty of a rose, don't try to add to the rose. Remove that which obscures the pure vision of the rose, and keeps you from experiencing it in its pure roseness. Similarly, if you want to purely experience your own spiritual nature, you must subtract, not add. How can you add to what is already perfect? It is simply a matter of recognition, of stopping the search for something to add to make better or greater. By adding more beliefs in the name of religiosity or spirituality, we are only furthering ourselves from the pure, simple symmetry of our inherent being. So the more you go into anything, the more you delve in with sensitivity, the less of the label you find and the more of awareness or consciousness, that capacity of experiencing you find in the very thing, the very event, the very condition, the very experience you are holding within experiencing. If you go into the very sensory building blocks of any experience, that's all you find. You only find the one sense, whatever that is. We're calling it experiencing, we're calling it awareness, consciousness. It's nothing like that. You only find it though. These are suggestions, they're attempts at describing the indescribable. It is consciousness, but it's consciousness beyond consciousness. It is reality, but reality beyond reality. It is awareness, but awareness beyond awareness. It's love, but love beyond any notion of love.
So suppose you're in a spaceship 500 miles over Earth, geosync orbit over Africa, and you look down at Africa, and someone points out that that's Africa, this account, and you look at it, and you get, okay, I know what Africa is. You look at it, you see the shape of it, you see, sort of shades of green and brown and whatever, and you look at it and you go, okay, that's Africa, I get it, that's Africa. So then you go down and you're flying, a mile above Africa, flying around the continent, and you go, wow, there's a whole lot here that I didn't really notice before. Africa's a lot more than I thought it was. And then you go down and you get in a Land Rover, and you start driving around Africa from town to town and, road to road, and you go, Jesus Christ, there's so much here. I thought I knew what Africa was. I looked at it and there was this shape and that was Africa, but now look at all this incredible stuff. When does it end? And then you get out your magnifying glass and you get on your hands and knees and you go from one coast to the other of Africa. And by that time, of course, you're stark raving loony and you died hundreds of years ago. But assuming the miraculous, you are very, very impressed with the extent of what Africa is. And we won't go into the electron microscope and the atom smasher and so on and so forth. But you get this principle of, what prevents noticing infinity, what prevents noticing indeterminacy, is this principle of, I've got enough information, now I know what it is. It's rounding off. So you're with any phenomena in your experience, and you have absorbed an arbitrary amount of what it seems to be presenting, and then you close the door. You say, okay, now I know what it is. And you close the door and you draw a picture of it and name it, and that's this. And you bang, you've got it down. You know what that is. Until, of course, you look closer and you know, gosh, there's a lot more here. So this essential principle of moreness is absolutely inherent in experience itself. Anything whatsoever that can appear in experience is literally infinite in terms of getting a handle on what it actually is. But of course we're all very familiar with this principle of doing this. We do it quite spontaneously and automatically. I know what a light is, I know what a computer is. Because you sort of, I've got enough information, I sort of know what it is, and then I stop looking. And at that point, a limitedness sets in, an inertness sets in. It's this dull, lifeless thing that's a computer, and it's, sitting here, and it's pretty much the same next time I look at it as it was last time I looked at it as it is now. And so it's all sort of compartmentalized and collapsed down into certainty, into stability. And yet experientially, I could never experience this computer the same way twice. Absolutely impossible. This computer is absolutely endless. It's endless in the moment. It's endless from moment to moment. It's endless in any way. This is discovering this, noticing this principle and experience is really the dividing line between being stuck in an imaginary world which is limiting, which will generate a sense of suffering, generate a sense of frustration, generate a sense of boringness, of lifelessness, all these sorts of qualities. And on the contrary, noticing this open-endedness opens the door to endless, spontaneity, vitality, excitement, stimulation, meaningfulness, complete unlimitedness, i.e. unstuckness. The possibility of stuckness in this context doesn't compute. It's absolute gibberish. It's like, how can something be stuck? What's going to be impeding it? What's going to be holding it back? What's going to be blocking it? When everything is infinitely open-ended. So now another important point is this is not an abstract principle. This is a concrete principle of experience itself. It's in operation always in experience. In real time, right now, right here, anything you're experiencing is infinitely open-ended. And it's quite possible to notice this phenomenon. And when you do, your experience and the world you seem to inhabit and you yourself and so on and so forth reveal themselves as astoundingly different than you've always taken them to be. So this is a very powerful, an exceedingly powerful principle. And again, it's not an abstraction. We're talking something that's extremely concrete. This is an aspect of experiencing itself, which is never not the case. It's always how it is. This is the reason I called my website The Open Doorway, because experience itself, the door's never closed. Anything that seems to present an experience is always a doorway to moreness. And you were with anything in the experience, and there's more. And there's another door, there's more. There's more. Forever. There's no bottom, you can't get to the bottom of anything, you can't get to the final, finite experience of anything. It cannot be done. And this principle is very powerful. It's extremely powerful in terms of revealing what this is, what you are, and in the process, of course, getting you completely unstuck from your confusion about what this is not that you may have a tendency to hold.
The point is, it is what you are, and it's what you already are. So you are aware. You're aware. So just that's the fact. You're aware. You're switched on. You're open, and you're receptive. You're aware. The mind may take you into, well, I'm aware because I have a brain, and these senses make me aware, and blah, 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 blah. What we're pointing to is the fact that you're aware. So, okay, start there. You're aware. Now, this awareness is all that's pointed to, okay? It's this awareness, not some other awareness, not some new awareness, not some expanded awareness, not some elevated or higher awareness. It's this awareness. It's this. And everything you are aware of is also this. So there's this oneness of awareness, and it isn't something new, and there isn't anything that isn't that. Now, scrap the word awareness and just be with it. It's this. It's this. It's this. Scrap the word this, and that's all you ever find. And you are that too. What can be recognized is this Shakti, this energetic explosion of divinity, of the pure light of reality, never becoming distorted, never becoming anything other than what it is, always. The very makeup of creation, of manifestation, it's the unmanifest, never really becoming something final and solid and fixed, never really becoming manifestation, always the unmanifest, which doesn't make any sense. It's completely paradoxical, illogical to conception, to the mind. But as you said, it is both and it's beyond. It's all and nothing, and beyond all and nothing. It's not all or nothing, it's all and nothing, and beyond these two.
Yeah. When you said the quote about the rose, coincidentally, there's a rose outside my window. So I was following along. And, if I don't call it rose, if I just look at it directly, this is going to sound funny, but it's like, it's almost like it's an old friend. Like, it's difficult to put words to, but it's part of my body. It's recognized. It's like I've been sort of looking at things, totally missing what they are. Just not. This is what is spoken about in Dzogchen and Advaita, is recognition. And it's like you're not recognizing. You're not recognizing what's there. Like it's like seeing someone you've known for lifetimes and you don't recognize them. You're like, how can I not recognize you? And then you're like, wait a minute, I know who you are. But anyway, I was just looking at the rose, and it's not about any effort. It's just it's so simple, too simple for words and too simple for anything I can think about, anything I can add, really. It's there's no rose there as such. It's not a rose. It's what it is. It is what it is. It's a meeting of what is meeting what is. It's not a rose and a person looking at the rose. It's felt as what it is. to ramble on and just give some unnecessary wording to. But the forgetting of itself is part of the arc of knowing itself. That's how it looks. The forgetting of itself is a crucial aspect to it knowing itself. The total ignorance of itself is part of the knowing of itself. You could say it's a game, it's a dance, whatever you want to call it, but that's part of it. We don't want to make anything wrong. Nothing's wrong. Okay, there's nothing you're doing that's wrong. If you can't see it, you're not wrong. There's no wrongness here. You are, even if you're in total ignorance right now, you are on your journey to realization, you could say. You can't not be, because you are it. You're on the upward arc towards fully knowing yourself as reality. You're just in the forgetting stage. Not that this actually can be put in stages or an arc, but it's part of it. It's evidently, if you look at anyone who has ever come to see this, there's always been a point where there's just not this full realization, this full appreciation, this full knowing of what they are. There's always been some level of ignorance, you could say. So that's part of it, and that's absolutely fine. So that's another thing I think is good to mention, just because you're able to sort of be honest with yourself where you are. You don't need to get frustrated with yourself. Where you are is perfect, and it might not be easy to see that where you are is perfect, but it's absolutely appropriate and perfect wherever you are with it. This is just what it is, and you are that already. So you don't need to try and attune to it in a way, because it's already completely unconditionally receptive to itself as itself, because it can't not be. By existing, you are automatically aware, because you are already awareness. You are already reality, which is intelligent, hyper intelligent, and aware, hyper intelligent, and just totally receptive to itself without being separate from itself in any way. It just is already all of its body parts. Everything you could possibly see is all of your body as reality. Everything you could possibly hear is your body as reality. So you're already there. You're already there automatically.
Yeah, so you are reality, the ultimate, the one, the absolute. And you're always seeking yourself. You're always trying to come home, not recognizing that you are home itself. You're not simply at home, you are home. And no matter what you do, no matter your desire, you're always attempting to come back to your natural state. That's all you want. That's all you long for, your natural state. And it's right here, and it's all that is. Reality wants what you want. It's looking for you as you look for it. This actually is very simple and very accessible, because if you want to investigate reality, if you want to investigate yourself and the nature of things, then you only have to look here. You only have to feel into this present. If you want to get to know what life is, then it will happily get to know you if you give it a chance. It reveals itself as you relinquish what you think it is. And the way you do that is that you give the actual experience a chance to reveal itself through just entertaining the possibility that what you think it is isn't what you think it is. It's not about anything becoming anything else or changing into something better or higher. It already is the way it is. So this is why it's been called an open secret. Like, it is already that. It's already what you are beyond what you think you are and what you think things are. So this is a remembrance, not an acquisition. It's a simplification, not a complexification. This is about learning via unlearning to appreciate what this actually is, what's already going on, what the actual way of things already is.
In terms of learning to be with it profoundly, it can feel like a kind of peeling layers of the onion. But the layers aren't actual layers, they're layers of your own understanding. So you be with something as profoundly as you're capable of being with it until you discover a more profound way. And then you can say, oh, I've moved from this to that. But there's no actual this or that. That's just pragmatically speaking in terms of your own subtlety of being able to be with it. But it itself is the same. It never transforms. Be with any aspect of experience and then be with it more subtly. And not by abstracting it, but by be with it more presently, more detail, more refinement. It's not about going into your head or going into imagination. It's about the actual detail, the immediate, undeniable actuality of what is present. That's where the power is.
Peter, as you were, it occurred to me, I just got a strong sense that the mind stuff would normally be thought of as a mental chatter, discursive memories, and just ongoing commentary of the ordinary thinking. From the perspective which you're speaking, that's not a problem. That's none other than just the activity of the bigger
Yes.
mind. And I
Yes.
brought that ever so slightly, but
Yes. All of this activity is the radiance of Sambhogakaya. All of it. Our ignorance, our stupidity, the mental chatter, our obsessiveness, our attachment to things, our misinterpretation, all of that is itself, describing it like that, is a misinterpretation of the primal radiance of Sambhogakaya, which is everything. That's the point. That's why it's called great perfection.
there's no fighting anymore.
Yeah, because everything is it. There's nothing that's not it. There's nothing that needs to be purified. There's nothing that needs to be removed. There's nothing that needs to be abstained from. There's nothing that's better, or for that matter, worse than anything else, because it's all actually the absolute.
That is such a relief. I mean,
Yeah, it's what a load off, eh? Thank God. Yeah, good, very good.
Thank you.
So the implication of that is being with any phenomena whatsoever is being with the absolute. So be with your neuroses, be with your moodiness, be with, some horrible scene among stupid people, be with anything, and that is the absolute. That is itself the direct radiance. Doesn't matter. Does not matter, does not matter, does not matter. And then everything whatsoever is the path, and everything whatsoever is the goal.
This moment does not need to change to become this. You don't need to change to become this. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to stop doing anything. You don't need to attain anything. You don't need to purify anything. You don't need to fix anything. Only to notice what already is. It's totally accessible, totally doable. The invitation is to notice This noticing is possible now, and it's actually already going on if you just peel back the labels. Like you always say, you're already across the finish line. Actually, there was no race. There was no race behind you. There's only the finish line. Each presentation, each reflection turns out to be only you, only reality. So wherever you go, you only find the goal. You only find the end of the path, the finish line, even though it doesn't seem that way. Feels like there's a distance, but there's only the immediacy. Reality is so close, you can't even call it intimate. You can't even call it close. It's because there's only that. You can't have more intimate access, as Peter always says, because it's actually what you are and what reality is. Because you are both the experiencing and what is being experienced. And, it's the only fact. It's self-evident and it's totally unconcealed, totally present.
I was put on hospice several months ago. The expectation is I am not going to be here for very much longer. I've been trying to do these Zooms for as long as I've been able, and it feels like I'm getting to the point where that's getting difficult in terms of how my body's functioning. I feel like the quality of the Zooms over the last year has been going down. My mind is not as sharp as it once was due to drugs I have to take, as well as age and so on. My knowing of what this is does not fade, but my ability to translate it artfully and riddling into words has been dulling. So, we have the recordings of the earlier Zooms, which of course will remain available. A friend asked if there was a teaching, or if I knew a teaching about dying. And yes, I think that's important. The teaching about dying is the same teaching about anything. This is radiant presence right here, right now. This is reality right here, right now. Your experience, what it is astounding, regardless of what it looks like. And this is the great fallacy, as humans, we spend all our time worrying about what our experience looks like, whether we're experiencing this or that, whether we're succeeding or failing, whether we're happy or sad, whether we're sick or healthy. But that's not where the action is. That's not what matters. What matters is the presence of experience itself. This being, this miracle that is right here, right now. There's endless, infinite patterns of energy shining as all of this information, pure intelligence, pure meaningfulness, as the content of experience. Being aware of that on its own level revealed an entirely different perspective, an entirely different universe, an entirely different implication than you would have thought from looking at it from the normal human consensus reality perspective. And this is yoga. This is the very nature of yoga. It's to go to what experience is, not what it looks like. Doesn't matter what you do. It does not matter what you do. People ask me, should I sit in meditation? People ask me, should I take this drug? People ask me, does it matter if such and such? And the answer is no. It doesn't matter who gives a shit. Whatever you do, it's just what it looks like. You know, you have a good dream, you have a bad dream, but the point is it's a dream. What's a dream? Not whether it's good or bad, not how do I get to good dreams, how do I avoid bad dreams. So this is the teaching on dying. This is the teaching on living. This is the teaching on being. It's all the same. This that is right here, right now. Fucking check it out. Let yourself feel what it is. Let yourself explore what it is in itself. Thank you all very much for joining me. Please take care. You have my best wishes.
Love you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Love you, Peter. Love you, Peter. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Peter. Love you.
Thank you, Peter.
Peter. Flights of angels.
Thank you, Peter.
Love you, Peter.
We love you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you for everything.
Love you and thank you. Much gratitude, Peter.
Infinite gratitude. Love you.
We are all blessed.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. For everything, Peter.
Your experience doesn't exist in space and time. Your experience exists and space and time appear within it. So the fact that you're outside of space and time is very interesting. That means, among other things, you were never born. You're not going to die.